Have you ever felt like a house could listen, like it was alive, watching your every move? What if the place you call home was hiding secrets far older and darker than you could imagine? I'll never forget the day I moved into my new house. On the surface, it was everything I dreamed of: quaint, charming, and tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. It was the perfect retreat for someone like me, looking for a fresh start. But almost immediately, I sensed something was off. It wasn't something I could explain. The air inside felt thick, heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. I convinced myself I was overthinking. Moving can be overwhelming, and this was just my nerves. Right? But that first night proved me wrong. As the sun set, a strange stillness enveloped the house. I was unpacking boxes in the living room when I heard a faint creak upstairs. I froze, holding my breath. It was probably just the house settling, I thought. Old houses make noises, don't they? But then it happened again. Another creak, followed by what sounded like soft footsteps, as though someone was pacing back and forth. My heart raced. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. At the top, the hallway stretched before me, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. I checked every room, my nerves on edge, but found nothing. The sound had stopped. Back downstairs, I tried to laugh it off. It's just an old house, I whispered to myself, almost like I was trying to convince the walls. But deep down, I felt like I wasn't alone. The next morning, the house seemed different, quieter, almost as if it was pretending to be normal. I spent the day settling in, unpacking boxes and arranging furniture. I wanted to feel at home, but the oddities kept piling up. While cleaning the living room, I noticed faint scratches along the floorboards, forming erratic patterns that seemed too deliberate to be random wear and tear. In the kitchen, I was hit by a sudden, overpowering smell of gasoline. It was so strong that I gagged, searching for its source, but found nothing. Then there were the shadows. It started as subtle flickers in my peripheral vision, so faint that I questioned whether I'd even seen anything. But they grew bolder. One evening, while arranging books on the shelf, I saw clearly a dark, human-like shadow darting across the hallway. I froze, the book slipping from my hand and landing with a loud thud. My chest tightened as I stood there, paralyzed. Gathering my courage, I stepped into the hallway, but there was nothing. Just silence. By the third night, sleep had become impossible. Every creak, every groan of the house felt deliberate, like it was trying to keep me awake. Around 2 a.m., I heard a soft whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I realized it was coming from inside. The sound seemed to be coming from the walls, faint but unmistakable, a low, unintelligible murmur that grew louder as I pressed my ear closer. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the house, shattering the stillness. I jumped, my heart pounding in my chest. It came from downstairs. I grabbed my phone and crept down, using its flashlight to guide my way. The living room was eerily silent, but as I turned toward the kitchen, I saw that the back door was wide open. My hands trembled as I locked it, trying to convince myself I'd simply forgot to close it earlier. But I knew that wasn't true. By now, I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being watched. It wasn't paranoia, it was an oppressive, heavy sensation that followed me everywhere I went in the house. Even when I was alone, I felt eyes on me. One afternoon, while studying in my room, I caught a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I had snapped toward the window, but there was nothing there, just the empty backyard, still and lifeless. Determined to figure out what was going on, I started asking around about the house's history. The neighbors were hesitant to talk, their expressions darkening at the mention of the address. Finally, an older woman, Mrs. Clark, opened up. "The house has seen more families come and go than I can count," she said, her voice low. "Most of them leave in a hurry. There are stories, things that can't be explained. You should be careful." That night, armed with fragments of local gossip, I decided to search the attic. The air was thick with dust, and cobwebs clung to every corner. In the far end of the attic, I found an old trunk, its lid slightly ajar. Inside were photographs of the house from decades ago. The photos showed smiling families posing in front of the house, but something about their faces sent a chill down my spine. Their smiles looked forced, their eyes hollow. I flipped through them quickly, my unease growing with each one. At the bottom of the trunk was a diary, its leather cover cracked with age. The entries were chilling. The writer, a young woman, described strange occurrences in the house, objects moving on their own, phantom footsteps, and a shadowy figure that appeared at night. Her final entry read, "The house takes. I can feel it coming for me. I'm next." I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was alive, feeding off my fear. That Sunday, I decided to spend the day outside, hoping to escape the oppressive atmosphere. But as evening fell, I had no choice but to return. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt charged, like static electricity. I tried to distract myself with chores, but the tension was unbearable. Around 9 p.m., it started. The knocking. It came from the front door, loud and insistent. I froze, my pulse racing. When I finally worked up the courage to peek through the peephole, there was no one there. But the knocking didn't stop. It moved to the back door, then the windows, then upstairs. It was everywhere. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it a prank? But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Suddenly, the knocking stopped. The silence was deafening, but it didn't last. I felt it before I saw it, a presence. Turning slowly, I saw it. A shadowy figure stood at the top of the stairs, its form barely distinguishable. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just watched. My breath caught in my throat as the figure melted into the darkness. I spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, every light in the house turned on. Sleep was out of the question. The next morning, I decided I couldn't stay there another night. But before I left, I needed answers. I returned to the diary and pieced together its cryptic warnings. The house, it seemed, had a dark history. Families who lived there often reported the same phenomena: shadows, whispers, and the suffocating feeling of being watched. But it wasn't just fear. People disappeared. The diary hinted at something deeper, something malevolent. I ventured into the basement that afternoon, armed with a flashlight and a sense of desperation. The stairs groaned under my weight, and the air grew colder with each step. The basement was damp and filled with the smell of mildew and decay. In the corner, hidden beneath layers of debris, I found a second trunk. Inside were more photographs, but these were different. They showed the same families from the first set, but the smiles were gone. Their faces were twisted in terror, their eyes wide with fear. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered. The air around me felt heavier, denser. And then I heard it whisper, louder than ever. Leave. I dropped the flashlight and scrambled up the stairs, my heart pounding. The basement door slammed shut behind me, as if the house itself was trying to trap me. That night was the worst of all. The house came alive. Doors slammed, windows rattled, and the whispers turned to screams. Shadows flooded the room, their forms twisting and writhing. I tried to escape, but the figure from the stairs blocked my path. It loomed over me, its presence suffocating. For the first time, it spoke. You shouldn't have come. In a moment of desperation, I grabbed the diary and screamed, I know your secret. The shadows recoiled, their forms dissolving like smoke. The figure hesitated, its outline flickering. Seizing the moment, I ran. As dawn broke, I threw my belongings into my car and sped away, not daring to look back. But as I turned the corner, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The shadowy figure stood in the driveway, watching, waiting. They say houses hold memories, but this one holds something far worse. If you ever feel a house watching you, listening to you, leave. Some places aren't meant to be lived in. If you've experienced anything like this, let me know in the comments. And if you're new here, subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night. Until next time, stay safe and stay out of the shadows.